Alrighty, everybody. Thanks for tuning into the channel. James Cards FC here, and today, when you're watching this, we will have passed the 1,000 subscriber count, and today we'll be doing the Q&A for the 1,000 subscriber special. I thank you guys so much for tuning in to all of my videos, whether you've been with me through the beginning, or you just recently subscribed, or you're just recently finding this video. I thank you so much for tuning in, and without further ado, I just want to get into this. We have like 50 questions to go through, so I don't want to waste any time, but thank you guys so much for all the support, and let's go ahead and get into all the user submitted questions. So I titled this one Starting 11. These are not only the first 11 questions or so that I got, but it was a cool name, and these are questions that I thought I could answer pretty quickly. So let's go through all of them. So number one, favorite card of all time. There's way too many to name, but without picking something super basic, I'd go with the 2006 Chromo Top Once Ronaldinho card. It's the Galaxy refractor looking card for Ronaldinho. It's not the most uncommon card, but it's tough to find in really good condition, and I think it's a really nice looking card. So if you haven't seen that one, feel free to look it up. I probably should have put a picture of it here, but I was just trying to get through all the information. But yeah, if I had to pick a favorite card without going with something super basic, I'd pick 2006 Chromo Top Once Ronaldinho. What got me into sports cards? I collected baseball cards as a kid, and I was super into FIFA Ultimate Team in college, and that led me to soccer cards in late 2019. As with most Americans at the time, towards the mid to late half of 2019, the whole sports card market was getting pretty hot, and so I started off with baseball and basketball, but then once I noticed there were soccer cards, and they were really cheap, especially if you compared them to guys like Luka and Trey at the time, were so much more expensive than guys like Marcus Rashford and Jadon Sancho, who were these super hot prospects at the time. So soccer just seemed like an obvious entry point for me, and it was something I enjoyed more at the time, so I went ahead and got into that. Favorite set of all time, I'm going to split this into groups. So for vintage, I'd go with 1958 Americana. I think that is the best looking of the Pele rookie sets, and so if I have to pick a vintage set, I'm going to pick that one just because I really like the photography and the colors in it. So 58 Americana for vintage. For pre-modern, I said 2004 Mega Cracks. I think that's an obvious one for me to pick just because the checklist is so good and it has the Messi Grill card in it. For modern, I put 2014 Panini Prism. I'm super biased because I have a really big Neymar card from that set, but as well, I understand how important that set is for the modern side of the market because it's the first Americanized set. So 2014 Prism for modern, and then if I have to pick ultra modern, I'll go with 2018 Panini Treble. I think that's really unique looking cards. They're really rare. They're really hard to find. They're really hard to grade. The set only came out once. So for all those reasons, I really like the set. I don't know how much value it'll hold in the long run, but I personally just really like it. And if I have to pick an ultra modern set, at least that one is something really unique, hard to find, and hard to get in good condition. So I'd pick that for ultra modern. For what do I enjoy most about soccer cards specifically? For myself, I think it's unique in comparison to other American sports cards. There's not a lot of soccer-specific dealers, whereas you see people that deal in basketball and baseball and football all at the same time. You don't see a lot of people singularly going into soccer, and so I think that's really cool to be an American in the soccer card market. I also think there's much less I know there's much less soccer cards out there, and they come from all over the world, which I think is really interesting. If you want to buy a key of a La Liga player, you probably have to buy it from Spain. If you want to buy a key of a pick any league in the world. If you want to buy a key of a Netherlands player, you have to probably buy something from the Netherlands. So I think that's really cool. And I love the sport of soccer, obviously, and I think it'll rise here in the United States. I think it's on an obvious trajectory with the MLS getting more popular every year. The United States men's national team is obviously super popular right now, and we'll see how successful they are over the next 6, 10, 12, 14, however many year window that we're in for this generation of the United States men's national team. But yeah, really optimistic about the sports future, specifically in America. Top 3 cards that I don't have, and if I had an unlimited budget, what would I pick? I'm going with the really obvious ones here. Mega Cracks Ronaldo PSA 10 rookie, Mega Cracks Messi PSA 10 rookie, and then the 2003/2004 Mega Features Ronaldinho patch auto card, numbered out of 25. This comes from the Japanese version of the set. I've only ever seen one picture of it since there's only 25 of them and they were released in Japan. I think it's unlikely that any of them see the public market, at least not in the near term, but I know PSA has graded a couple, Beckett's graded a couple, so maybe someday one of them comes to market. But yeah, those would be my 3 dream cards. Pre-modern's my favorite era. Those are my 3 favorite cards from it, and so I would pick those if I had unlimited budget. What is one card that I think would be going up in value no matter what? Now, obviously, no financial advice. This is all just for fun. But if the 2004 Mega Cracks 71 Biz Lionel Messi card does not go up, the whole soccer market's in a pretty bad spot. Prospecting is akin to gambling, so I can't really pick a prospect for this. And the Mega Cracks Messi is like the most key on the market, so as it moves, the market moves as well. So if that's not valuable, the whole market outside of gambling isn't valuable. So yeah, I would say that one in pretty much any grade. Do I think players like Xavi, Suarez, Iniesta, Rooney, and Drogba will hold or increase in value in the long run? So it's an interesting question. I think it's a question a lot of people ask when they start thinking about pre-modern guys. I think those players are currently very undergraded in comparison to Messi and Ronaldo. So, for example, Messi is in Mundi Chromo sets and he has hundreds of thousands of grades, whereas Iniesta and Samuel Eto'o and a few guys like that from Spain are in Mundi Chromo and they don't have hundreds of graded yet, but they should have hundreds of cards out there because they were produced in the same league. So I think a lot of those guys are very undergraded right now, and so the population reports could get pretty high. So I wouldn't be paying premiums on them right now. If soccer explodes in terms of popularity for soccer cards, I think they could be good, but I would not prioritize them over Pele, Maradona, Messi, and Ronaldo, who are all better than those guys, will have more demand than those guys, and have much more real population reports currently. Obviously, all the population reports will increase, but I think the population reports for the next level of stars like Xavi, Suarez, and Iniesta will increase at a much higher rate because those cards haven't been graded yet, whereas the known value of Messi and Ronaldo is out there. So a lot of the high-grade stuff has already been put through PSA at this point. Number 8, how much more growth does the soccer card market have in the U.S. realistically? That's a really tricky question. I think it's very dependent on the MLS getting into major tournaments and the U.S. doing well at the World Cups, because I'm going to talk about this later in more detail about the MLS, but the fact that it's not the best league in the world in the United States, where every other major sports league is the best in the world, I think is a huge problem and a big drawback for the MLS. So unless they're getting into major tournaments, I don't see how it's going to become super mainstream popular on the level of the other sports in the United States. So I think that's a big drawback. And then the US doing well World Cups obviously keeps the interest going for the sport in general in this country. And so obviously I think that's going to be huge as well. So if those two things don't go well, then I don't think there's much out there to succeed in for the United States. It's more of a world game at that point. But if either of those things do end up happening and the U.S. team ends up being really good, or the MLS starts getting bigger in terms of being able to bring in bigger stars and playing bigger tournaments, then I'd feel more confident as well. Number 9, safest hold. As I said before, nothing is safe, but if 2004 Mega Cracks 71 Biz Messi isn't safe, this entire market's probably just going to collapse in on itself, because if that doesn't hold value, I don't see a reason as to why anything else in the market would. Number 10, 5 strongest brands today, and then number 11, 5 strongest brands in 10 years. For today, I went with Panini Prizm World Cup, Topps Chrome Champions League, Panini World Cup stickers, Panini Mega Cracks, and then Flawless and Eminence for the high-end product. I think those are the most obvious answers in terms of demand and value right now. I think these are the sets that people look towards the most for a variety of different reasons. So those would be the 5 I picked for now. If I had to pick the 5 strongest brands in 10 years, I would say Panini Prizm World Cup with an asterisk if Fanatics doesn't produce this product again in the future. Obviously, I don't think it's going to make this list. So dependent on Fanatics acquiring Panini and continuing to produce Panini World Cup, that would be still in the top 5. But if those things don't happen, I don't think it will be in the top 5. Topps Chrome Champions League, I assume Fanatics are going to keep that as their flagship product, so that will continue. Panini World Cup stickers, unless something happens with the licensing, I would keep that on the list. Mega Cracks for Panini as well, I think stays on the list no matter what, just because those sets are so historical. And then a new high-end product that Fanatics brings in, I think will probably be pretty big. For example, if they do National Treasures and they have Panini and they do it like they do for basketball and for football, and you have National Treasures rookie patch autos out of 99 for all the rookies in the soccer class, I think that could be a huge product for the sport. So those would be my guesses on strongest 5 brands over the next 10 years. Alrighty, then we'll go into the segment called Open Play. I think I have 29 of these questions where I give more drawn-out analysis for some of these. So we'll start off with the MLS one that I referred to previously. So what are my thoughts on the MLS and its potential for U.S. soccer growth? I think it needs changes if it's ever going to be super impactful. Number 1, all other American sports leagues are the best in the world. NFL, and NBA, MLB, and MLS is not the best league in the world. It's probably not even in the top 10, maybe fringe end of the top 10, but but definitely not anywhere towards the top 5. So the fact that it's not the best league in the world, I think it's a big drawback. And also, MLS players are past their prime, unwanted by bigger clubs usually, and even the best young talent is usually gone to Europe before they really start getting good, so you lose all those guys to better leagues and better clubs. So for all those reasons, I don't really like the MLS structure currently, but if the MLS is somehow able to get included in the Champions League or some other kind of major international tournament that they come up with in the future to better its legitimacy as a league and the talent pool, I think that's a huge start in terms of getting more people interested in it in the United States. If there are more teams like Philadelphia Union with top United States men's national team prospects and the United States men's national team captures the country mainstream consciousness, I think that could be huge. There's also no history or culture around following MLS teams in the U.S. like there is following for NBA, NFL, MLB teams that have been in at the same city for 50 plus years in some cases. A lot of the MLS teams are within the past decade or two brand new to their cities, and so it takes a long time to build up that culture around the teams, and so that just doesn't really exist right now, and I don't know how that gets cultivated, or at least in the short term. So my personal answer here would be that I love soccer. I live 20 minutes from a good MLS team, which is Orlando, and I have zero interest in attending a match unless either of these things change, unless they have United States men's national team players that are really good prospects, or they have really standout players, or the MLS can get into the Champions League or some other tournament. I don't really have an interest in going to these matches. I'd rather just continue supporting Shakhtar, a team that I've supported for about a decade now, and have followed for a long time, and all those sorts of reasons. I'd much rather spend my time supporting them than supporting the MLS team that can never make the Champions League or never bring in super talented players or things like that. So for those reasons, I am not the most positive on the MLS, but I'm sure there's people that disagree with me from this standpoint. So moving on to number 2, on your journey to 1,000, what was easier than anticipated and what was more difficult? So on the easier end, I think producing content in terms of making it and posting it online is actually really easy. I had a lot of things I want to talk about. OBS, which is the recording software I'm using right now, is super easy to use, etc. It's really easy to set yourself up. Also, I thought it was easy to get views early on. I'm not talking about when I first started posting videos, but more when I was in the 50 to 150 subscriber range. I was able to get up pretty high from there. Not saying 1,000 is anything crazy, but in terms of what I thought I would get, I thought it'd be stuck around like 50 views for a really long time, but it actually picked up pretty quickly. But I had around 1,000 Instagram followers at the time I started my channel, and I'd been featured on some other channels like Sunday League Investors and Soccer Study and a few others that I'd spoken to, so I think that helped me a lot when I was starting out to get more views. So that's what I would say was easier. Harder, and something I'm really struggling with nowadays, is finding more things to talk about. I think I now have over 50 videos on my channel, and so if there's a topic you want to see me cover, I've probably already covered it and given my thoughts on it. So I've stated this a few times before. I feel like I've already said everything that I can say in terms of my thoughts on the market, but every now and then I come up with something new. But yeah, finding more things to talk about is pretty difficult. Number 3, one player that you could go back and collect if you could go back and start over. So this is an interesting question. If I started really early, I would have liked to put together a 2018 Panini Prism Rainbow for Douglas Costa. He was my favorite player for my favorite club for a few years, and I probably could have completed the entire Rainbow super cheap, but now it's just too late to start since a lot of the low-numbered ones are unlikely to get listed, especially 5 years after release of that set. So yeah, I would have gone back and done Douglas Costa. In FIFA 14 and 15, he was by far my favorite player. I played so many games with Shakhtar, and so I followed his career in FIFA as well as his career in real life, and so he was one of my favorite players. I would have loved to put together a Rainbow, but now I just don't think it's possible, and it's not something I really want to start, considering I highly doubt I'd ever be able to finish it. So that would be the one I would go back and do if I was purely going back to collect something. Number 4, would you come to a European card show soon, and what are your thoughts on them? I would love to go to a European card show. I actually, Brian and Troy recently did a bunch of videos where they went to the European card shows. I was thinking about joining Brian out there, but unfortunately the cost is just too high, and I'm going to end up going to Qatar instead. So, those things just don't work out. I think it's awesome that the content there is really good, and there's people going to these shows, and they look amazing, and it's obviously the lifeblood of the hobby in the future is these sorts of shows, so it's great. The more, the bigger, the more attend, the better. So I think it's great. I hope they keep going. I'd love to attend one day, perhaps in the next year or so. I'd love to get out there probably as part of a longer vacation rather than just going for a card show. But yeah, I would love to do that, but unfortunately I have not done it yet, but I think it's really cool and I would love to go to one. Clearly, I numbered this 4 by mistake, but we're going to have another number 4 right here. Best and worst moves in the market so far. I'm not going to talk about specific cards or sales or trades or grades or anything like that, but best would be learning to grade, not being afraid to sell, and understanding population reports and supply. I think those are the things that really benefit me, and those are the best things that I've done in the market so far. And the worst would be too much prospecting or trying to get too creative. So rather than buying or transacting obvious things, I was trying to get creative and go for super unknown prospects or get creative on sets that people weren't really interested in, and hopefully somebody gets interested in them over time. Yeah, I think that's pretty risky, and I would stick to the best over the worst in terms of those moves that I made in the market so far. Number 5, thoughts on Panini Prizm World Cup 2022 compared to 2014 and 2018. So, I have interesting thoughts on this. I don't see what's going to make it significant unless a super hobby relevant player wins the tournament and the market decides those cards are meaningful for that market. So, for example, if Messi, Ronaldo, Musiala, Pedri, etc., if those guys win the tournament and the market decides those are now huge cards for them, then I think it has some legs. But if that doesn't happen, I'm not sure what's going to be the huge draw to this set. 2014 is iconic because it's the first one. 2018 is iconic because it has Mbappe and the Landmarks case hit. I know a lot of people like those. I'm not super big fan of them, but I know a lot of people do, so it's iconic because of those two things. 2022, I'm not sure what it's going to be. Landmarks come back, but it's not anything different. There's some other case hits, but I don't think many people are super high on them. So yeah, not sure what's going to make this set iconic, so it's a sort of a wait and see to see who wins the tournament and how the market reacts to those cards. Number 6, investment profit. This is a hard question to ask because it's going to be heavily skewed with me getting super lucky when I got into the market. When I started in the market, 2014 Prizm base cards were literally a few dollars. Like Neymar base cards were $1 or $2. Messi base cards were like $10. So even now in PSA 10, those cards sell for over $100, I think. So yeah, I was in stupid early, so I'm not going to use the heavily skewed numbers, but nowadays on an average PSA submission, I net around 40 to 60% profit, but it varies greatly based on how well the cards grade out. Number 7, rip any product from the last 10 years for fun and for expected value. So for fun, I would choose 2004 Mega Cracks. I know it's boring, but pulling a mint 71 Biz Messi card would be pretty crazy, and so I would choose that for fun. For expected value, I would pick any Mega Cracks release through 2017. If you can find them in Spain, they could be under $100, and you have a chance at hitting some hard to find mint condition inserts and base cards of some of the best players in the era. So from a raw to grade perspective, if you can get those for the right price, I think it makes a lot of sense. Number 8, top 5 raw purchases. In terms of value, I was buying Sancho rookies for under $10 each, Neymar, Ronaldo, Messi base prisms for under $10 each, Holland Tops Now cards for under $5, etc. Yeah, 2020, especially early 2020 was wild time. Recently, in terms of raw cards that I did really well on, I bought a 2018 Panini Treble Blue Messi for around $500 and graded that in a PSA 9. So those sorts of deals are still out there. You have to do a lot more digging than you did previously, and the market's a lot more difficult than it was before, but there are still opportunities buying raw. Number 9, what are your favorite modern sets? For modern, I'd pick 2014 Prizm, 2017 Chrome, and 2015 Flawless. I think those are the clear top 3 in terms of both brand and demand and sort of where people think of them in the market right now for modern, so I would choose those 3. I also like 2018 Treble since it's unique and only released once, and I also like Merlin's diverse rookie checklist if we're going to super ultra modern stuff. I really like the new Merlin set. I put out a whole video on it where I talked about how I really like the checklist because you get rookies that aren't in other sets. So yeah, ultra modern, super ultra modern. I really like Merlin because of the diverse checklist. Number 10, what do people get wrong about vintage? And so I was going to take this 2 different ways since I wasn't sure how they were phrasing the question. Did they mean this in a positive way or a negative way? So I took it from both sides. On the overly positive side, some of the vintage issues are not as rare as we think, and they're not guaranteed to go up significantly year over year. I mean, in terms of price there. Vintage cards aren't going to go up in price significantly year over year, and there's potential that they don't even go up at all over the next 10, 20-year period unless there's an influx of demand. So don't think these are perfectly safe investments, and they're not. Certain issues are not as rare as we currently think they are. So Overly positive, I think that's what people get wrong. Overly negative, people will care about players that they never saw play. I know some people think that nobody's going to care about players from the pre-1980s if you weren't born prior to the 1980s or pre-1950s. I personally don't care about pre-1950s soccer, but I know for a fact there are people that will care, there are people that do care, and there's people that are going to care in the future. So yeah, people get that wrong. People will care about players that they didn't see play. It's more of a history thing than it is a personal nostalgia attachment thing. So yeah, people are going to care about those older cards. And that vintage can spike just like modern and ultra modern in bull runs without taking any of the performance risk on. So guys like Pele, Maradona, Cruyff, they had crazy spikes during the run up, not because of their performance, just simply because of the supply and demand economics on their side. So vintage can spike. It's not just a gradual increase over time. Not saying it's going to, and not saying it's going to gradually increase, but it did do that previously. Number 11, experience cracking SGC or HTA 9.5s and higher and subbing to PSA. I have very limited experience cracking SGC to PSA, but I've never had a card or sticker I crack from SGC, get a lower grade than with PSA. So I've cracked 9.5s from SGC and gotten PSA 10s. I've cracked 9s and gotten 9s. I've cracked a 3.5 and gotten a 4. So things like that. I've never had something I cracked from SGC get a lower grade with PSA. I've also never bought an HGA slab, and I probably never will. I don't advise buying HGA slabs just because I don't really know how professional their grading is, and so, yeah, I personally just avoid those. Number 12, buy and hold 3 cards for the next 5 years, affordable and high-end. So from high-end, I pick Messi 2014 Prism low-numbered cards, Messi 2017 Chrome low-numbered cards, and Messi 71 Biz PSA 10. I think Messi is the most obvious guy to buy for a longer term time horizon. Just from this era, I think he's the best of the best. I like the demographics in this era, so I would stick to his most popular releases from those super popular sets from this era. I really like Messi personally, so yeah, I would pick those 3 to hold for the next 5 years from the high end. And then I went more creative with the affordable. I said key United States men's national team rookies for the 2026 World Cup. I probably wouldn't buy them right now. I'd wait until this tournament ends, but I would focus on the key United States men's national team players that are going to feature in 2026, or at least who we think are going to feature there, because that's obviously a big catalyst for the market. I would also focus on early or key set non-rookie Pele and Maradona stickers. So not 1958 Pele's, not 1977 Maradona's, but some of their more iconic stickers from later years that are still affordable. I think those are really good. And then to go with that, iconic vintage stickers in low grade, I think, are really good holds for the next 5 years or so. So yeah, those would be my examples for both high end and affordable, but there are so many options out there on the market. This is just what I thought of first, I guess. Number 13, why do you think so few 2014 Prism color cards are graded? Yeah, this is an interesting question. I think the distribution is something like only 25 or 30% of the color cards have been graded from Prism by PSA. So I went ahead and did some thinking on this without looking at the population reports, because I don't want to dig into the Beckett Pop report because it's a nightmare to dig through the Beckett Pop report. But PSA was not the clear number 1 grader in 2014, so a lot of these could be in BGS slabs. And number 2, the product was not super popular in the years 2014 to 2019, so a lot of the wax ended up either unopened or shipped to Asia or South America, where grading is far less practical. So there's either still a lot out there raw, there's still a lot in Asia, there's still a lot in South America, or there's a lot in BGS slabs, and I think that accounts for the cards that are currently missing. Number 14, best investment for PC and for investment. This is an interesting question. Not sure what they're going for with this, but for PC, just pick the most iconic or important card for the player you PC and enjoy it. PC is for personal, at least the way I look at it. I look at PC as personal collection. You don't really care about the investment value, but if you care about the investment value of your PC, I would stick to the most iconic or important card for the player that you PC. For investment, again, no financial advice. Pele, Maradona, Messi, Ronaldo. Pick your favorite and aim for the most iconic and obvious stuff in your price range. I've said this before, if these guys' cards fail, which is possible, then the whole market is going to fail, which is also possible. So I would stick to those 4 guys because I think they're head and shoulders over the rest of everybody else in terms of potential demand in the future and potential demand right now. So I just really like those 4. Aim for the most iconic, obvious stuff in your price range for your favorite of those 4 guys. Number 15, state of raw to grade for pre-modern stars and key sets/inserts. So if you're looking to grade pre-modern stuff, I think you need to be hitting 9s and 10s right now. In the past, population reports were so low on pre-modern, and the mid-grades slab to allow you to cover your grading fees, but this of course is no longer the case, so you need to be hitting those 9s and 10s. I still like the best of the best pre-modern players and sets, but as far as raw to grade goes and as longer term holds, I think you need to be hitting the top of the top grades because there's a lot of supply outstanding on most of these sets. Sets like Mundi Chromo, sets like even Mega Cracks, these are pretty highly produced, especially sets like Stickers. These are pretty highly produced sets. They're all base cards that are not numbered, so you need to be hitting the top of the top grades in my opinion. At least for right now, where there's still a lot of outstanding raw. Number 16, which team did you cheer for growing up? So I didn't really watch club soccer as a kid. It's not easy to find on the US on television, at least when I was a kid, and the internet was just getting started with streaming. So just the US men's national team when they were in the World Cup was really what I was watching at that point. In high school and early college, I was a Barcelona fan because I loved watching Neymar highlights, and Messi was Messi, so that was really cool. And then I've always had a soft spot for Shakhtar since I played with them almost exclusively in FIFA 14 and 15 through Division 1 level. They were my favorite club. Today, since I followed the roster so closely for almost 10 years now, and Barcelona being such an overwhelming, huge, and dominant club with all this financial money that they could deploy, doesn't really appeal to me as much as rooting for more of an underdog team that has to scrap a little bit more and be creative with their youth programs and signing prospects and things like that. So, yeah, Shakhtar would be my favorite team. I still do like Barcelona, but I would pick the United States men's national team overall, their success. Number 17, thoughts on tickets. So I think tickets are interesting, but I think it's a very wait-and-see market for me right now. I have no idea what the pops are going to look like in a few years once the valuable ones all get slabbed up. For example, on Golden, every single auction now you see like 4 or 5 of the Messi debut slabs, so that kind of scares me in terms of what could be out there in terms of population on tickets. But I wouldn't mind ones like the Messi debut or the first Ronaldo Messi matchup ticket, but I'm not in any rush to pay the premiums, while the prop reports still need to be filled out, so I'll wait and see on those. Number 18, my favorite goal ever scored. I think this is an easy question for most U.S. men's national team fans my age. It's going to be Landon Donovan versus Algeria in 2010. If you're not familiar with the goal, the U.S. was actually going to be out of the group stage, and then in the 90th minute or something like that, Tim Howard throws this crazy long ball, and Landon Donovan gets on the end of the plate and finishes it, and the U.S. ends up going through. So, yeah, that was a huge goal. One of the first memories I have of watching soccer and watching a massive goal for my club and country scored live on TV. So, yeah, I thought that was awesome. Really cool. That would be my favorite goal by far. I think the Julian Green goal in added time versus Belgium in 2014 was also really cool, and the U.S. totally should have won that match not in extra time, but before that. So, yeah, that was the last game the U.S. ever played in the World Cup. The Julian Green goal was amazing, exceptional. I was going crazy. I was bouncing up and down in I think it was my parents' living room at the time. But yeah, I'll always remember that one too. But I would pick Landon Donovan over that just because we ended up winning that game. Number 19, player you've never liked, least favorite club, and most OP FIFA player. So I picked a variety of questions from the same DM I got here. So I don't think I've ever necessarily disliked a player. Can I say Greg Berhalter as manager? I'm just kidding. But yeah, I don't think I've ever really disliked a player, at least not to a point where I personally didn't want to see them succeed. So yeah, don't really have that going on right now. I don't necessarily, for least favorite club, I don't necessarily dislike Real Madrid, but I don't like the narrative that they're the best club in the world and every player wants to play there. So at least in my opinion as an American, that'd be like cheering for Alabama in American college football when you didn't go to Alabama. So don't like that. I don't necessarily dislike Real Madrid. I just don't like that everybody wants to go there and they're seen as the best club in the world for like ever. So yeah, call me a hater if you want, but I think it's just be like cheering for Alabama if you didn't go to Alabama in American college football. So yeah, there's my rant on Real Madrid. Last one for most OP FIFA player, not including all the ridiculous promotional cards that they've done over the past few years. If we're just talking about standard cards, playing against, for me, it was either Barbo or whichever pacey, tall, strong center back pairing was in meta each season. Those were both super, super annoying. And then for playing with Douglas Costa plus Luis Adriano at striker in FIFA 14-15 for me when I was playing with Shakhtar. Those guys were incredible. I think Costa was a center attacking mid in those games, but you could push him up to striker, and he was ridiculous at striker. And then Luis Adriano as well was really good at striker. So yeah, I would take those two. Thoughts on tickets? I think I already answered that one, but we'll move forward. Top 5 most iconic soccer cards. Number 1, I think, is, well, actually, I'm not going to list out the numbers, but these would be my top 5 if I had to pick 5. Pele Alifa in 1958, 1979, Panini Maradona, Mega Cracks Ronaldo, Mega Cracks Messi, and then 2018 Prism Kylian Mbappe. The reason I put Mbappe on the list is because what I'm going to say right here in number 22, disregarding Pele, Maradona, Messi, and Ronaldo, what is the most iconic rookie card in the soccer hobby? I think it's 2018 Prism Mbappe. It's not a true rookie, but a key and super mainstream card for the most popular non-GOAT player in the hobby. This was the most popular soccer card when the market exploded. Non-soccer people in the market transacted with it and knew of it, and it's one of the very few soccer cards to transcend our little niche of people doing soccer. People outside of our market know this card and really know this card because it was so heavily transacted and thought of back when the market started. So yeah, I would pick that as the 5th most iconic and the most iconic non-GOAT card in the market. Number 23, top 5 World Cup outcomes that benefit the hobby the most. I think this is interesting. I think U.S. doing extremely well is by far the most important thing that could happen for the market, because that's what keeps people interested, at least from the biggest market, which is the United States, in the soccer card market. So yeah, the U.S. doing extremely well, I think, is the biggest benefit that could happen to the market. Number 2 would be some sort of advertising tie-in for soccer cards and stickers during the tournament. Don't know what that would be, but some sort of direct tie-in that gets people into soccer cards that are just watching the games normally. I think that's the next biggest thing, or straight up there with the U.S. doing well. Those are the biggest things going to happen. After that, I think there's a huge gap, but then you have things like a young player having an Mbappe-level tournament and winning the World Cup, a mainstream star winning the World Cup, probably already priced in, but it would be nice for demand, even though it probably wouldn't outweigh supply in the short term. In the short term, it'd be nice to have a guy like Messi or Ronaldo win the World Cup. And then 5th, a complete wild card winning the World Cup, which I think is super interesting because that gives the hobby new players to chase. Who's a dark horse to win the World Cup? I guess Netherlands. Like, if Cody Gakpo goes crazy and leads the Netherlands to a World Cup title, then that gives the hobby new players to chase and gets a lot of interest on that one specific player or specific team. So that'd be good for the hobby as well, at least in my opinion. Number 24, do you think hoarding wax of iconic sets could be a good play? 100% yes. I think in most cases this is actually better than buying cards. If you want to do the boring thing and just sit on wax, it's probably the best thing you can do. But there are some strange risks in buying wax. So risk number 1 would be the box needs to be untampered. And we've seen in high-profile cases, like with the Pokemon cases or like with 1986 Fleer wax, there's not an exact expertise on the market for knowing if the box has been tampered with. So that's a risk you're going to have to take. And then number 2, there's the risk of hot boxes. Recently, people have discovered that the serial numbers on some boxes can correspond to which hits are in the box. And so if this becomes a more widespread issue, it could greatly affect box prices in the future if you have a serial number that does not correspond to a big hit. So 2 questions there in terms of risks for those. But if you are okay with taking on those risks, there will always be people wanting to gamble on wax. So if you pick the right sets, you have one of the very high in-demand assets on the market that the population reports actually go down on rather than go up. So yeah, I love wax. It's probably, I don't know, wax is getting more and more appealing to me by the day, but it's just so boring to look at that I don't know if I could do it. But I think from that more financial perspective, I think it's pretty smart to do so. Oh, sorry. If you pick the right sets, of course. Number 25, insights on my life besides the hobby that would be interesting. So I think that's an interesting question. I'm not really sure what I would say. I'm pretty much a very typical American path in terms of schooling. High school, college, job, that was pretty much my life and career up to this point. I work and study in both business data, so I've held positions where I'm doing data analysis on the business financial side as well as the more creative side. And so, yeah, business data is my background. On the sports side, I never played real-life organized soccer, but I was Division I in FIFA in college, so I guess that's kind of interesting that I'm such a big soccer fan, but I never actually played the organized sport in real life. In high school, I actually played baseball instead. Typical American. Number 26, top 10 content creators to follow. I'm just going to list off the ones that I watch the most. I'm sorry if I missed anybody. I'm sure I did. This was just some of the ones I randomly thought of off the top of my head, but For soccer specifically, you have guys like Soccer Study. If he didn't make videos, I wouldn't be making videos now. So Soccer Study would be on that list. Sunny League Investors, I've known them for a while. Great guys, great channel. Soccer Card Corner, obviously I've talked to him in the past. Adam Pybus, I've actually never talked to him. I think I've DM'd him one time. But yeah, I like how much content he produces. It's nice, even though I don't agree with all of his takes, it's nice to get such consistent content. So I like Adam. United States Men's National Team Soccer Cards, I've had him on the channel before. Love his content as well. Card Hour, back when he used to produce content, I thought was really cool. So those would be the guys that list for soccer. For more general sports cards, Trike415, who everyone's probably already subscribed to, he does great work. He's been in soccer market for a couple years now, so he's great to have in the community. Sports Card Investor, obviously, biggest channel there is in this space, and so I follow them. Northeast Ohio Sports Cards, if you're interested in other sports, I would definitely check out his channel because he does really good data analysis on it. Sports Card Radio and AH Sports for more of the pessimistic view of the market. I think it's important to balance the positive content you're watching with the negative content so you arrive somewhere in the middle. So I watch those two guys as well. Card Talk, or 1:37 p.m. I don't think their content is super great for soccer, but it's nice to hear them talk about it in some extent. Reserved Investments, I think, is pretty pessimistic on the collectibles market, but I think he has some good insights, so I watch his videos. And then Sports Card Anonymous, I think his content is really good as well, but he is currently retired, so he just posts videos on a super random schedule, but I like his content as well. And then if you're into comics, I'm kind of into comics. I've never bought one, but I might do one at some point. So if you're into comics, Swaggle is really, really good, so I would consider watching his channel if you haven't already. And if you're into comics at all, I think his videos are great. Number 27, most overpriced players in the market right now. I think this would be prospects that play non-goal scoring positions or roles. The market really hasn't shown a desire to pay big premiums for legends that weren't heavily involved in scoring, so I think it makes a little sense to pay premiums for those type of prospects. So guys like Pedri that doesn't score or assist a lot, at least right now, I don't really like. Guys like Aurelien, the center defensive mid for France and for Real Madrid, I don't really like because I don't see how he's going to get many goal involvements, but yeah, I would be avoiding prospects that are highly priced that aren't in goal scoring positions. All right, and on to the last few here. Running out of breath and need to get some water going, but we'll go on to number 28. 3 books I would recommend that impact thinking. I think this one's kind of interesting. I went with Moneyball by Michael Lewis, Extraordinary Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds by Charles McKay, and then A Random Walk Down Wall Street. So feel free to look into those books. I would recommend those 3. Best tips for grading: understand the population report and trends and the outstanding supply. I have a few videos on this topic, so look into that. Know what to look for when buying raw cards. Does the seller sell graded cards? Condition based on pictures, strong feedback, etc. Know where to buy raw cards. Hint, it's usually not on eBay, so do some research on where to find raw cards. Get a microfiber and watch videos on how people prepare cards for grading. And then the most important part, make sure the math works. Here's the equation. Raw card plus grading fees should not be higher than the lowest expected grade comp. So for example, a $20 raw card plus a $20 grading fee with the lowest expected grade of PSA 9. If the PSA 9 is selling for less than $40, it's probably not worth grading. So feel free to take all that in. Grading, I think, is super useful. There's a huge learning curve to it, but if you take those few pieces of advice and do some more research on them, I think you could succeed in that market. And with that, I will go ahead and conclude. So as I said at the beginning, I thank you guys for all the support. Glad to reach 1,000 subscribers. It's really cool. We'll see where we go from here. Not really sure what the content schedule will be, but we'll keep posting away. I'll be back in mid-December. I'm heading out to Qatar. I might be in Qatar by the time this thing is posted, but yeah, I'll be back in mid-December for some more content. So until then, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video.